Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all for coming out in the heat, by the way. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Adorama, for having me. I'll be talking about this passion project and getting published and how that all came about. I'm going to give a little, for those of you who don't know me, introduction that gives a little context, because I have nothing but joy with photography. I was an actor until the late 90s, and I stopped acting because it wasn't fun anymore. It was how I defined myself 100%. Am I okay with the sound? Yeah. But I never wanted for anything, but I don't come from money, and so I couldn't earn enough to pay my bills, so acting became not fun anymore. So I stopped. I worked my way out of debt. I was a cater waiter. I've done everything. And in about 2005, I picked up a camera, a little point and shoot. It was a Sony P72. It was $300, 3-time optical zoom, and 3 megapixels. And I would walk back and forth across the park. My father had 4 major surgeries at Mount Sinai to deal with the stress. And I realized in retrospect that it was therapeutic for me because it took my attention off myself and out onto the beauty of the park. And this is key. It was key with acting. It's key in photography. But just say you need to know your settings so that you can connect with your subject, whether that's a person, human being, whether it's a landscape, whether it's a bird in South Africa, whatever that might be. So I became addicted to the physical act of taking photos. I think many of you feel that. It's a total joy. And I got my first big boy camera in about 2008 so that I could photograph birds in Central Park. And that has over time led, and I'll show a little bit, aside from this stuff, I make my full-time living as a headshot and portrait photographer here in New York City, but I work with a wildlife conservation nonprofit in South Africa. I'm an ambassador, and I get to go and photograph birds, and we support schools and stuff like that. So became addicted to the physical act of taking photos. And in about 2011, I was on a photo walk with that other store, and we were tasked with taking photos of strangers on St. Mark's Place and in the East Village. I was very nervous at the time, both because of approaching strangers, and then also because of taking a good photo. And my skill set at the time was okay, not great. And by the way, it's a constant learning, which is fantastic. One of the things I love about photography. But at that experience, I realized I so enjoyed communicating and interacting with people that I decided to start approaching strangers on the street. And I realized that because my intentions were good, they responded well to me. You can't fake that. And I decided, because acting didn't work out, that I wanted to be a professional photographer. But I made a great decision, very practical one. And I really do like people. And to this day, doing headshots, whether it's for acting students or seasoned professionals, I'll show you, I think I have an image. I have one famous person that I've ever been hired to photograph. I love doing that and interacting. So for about 3 years, from 2011 to 2014, I just practiced. And I came to all the free event stuff in the city. I went to ICP for a little bit, and I dragged all my friends, and I said, listen, these may be awful, but I need to practice with you. And I did that thing that I tell my mentees to do now, and students, is I practiced, and practice, right? You can attend a talk, you can look, read, see something in YouTube about technique and stuff, but you have to be unafraid to practice and to make a fool out of yourself. There's a guy, J.C. Carey, he's the East Coast rep for Westcott, and I do a lot of stuff with them. And he has a great way of phrasing it. He says, fail forward. The bigger the mistake you made, the faster you will learn. The key is to surround yourself with people who will meet you where you are and not judge you. And one of the most beautiful things that I found in the photography industry is that I've become friends with famous photographers because they saw that I had the talent to do the work. Not cocky, not want to be internet or Instagram famous overnight just because you got a camera and you're kind of cool and all that kind of stuff, but doing the work, the talent to do the work every day. So what I just say a little bit, if there's something that lives in your heart, I also am very passionate about this. I'm old enough to have lost both my parents, and not to be a downer, I lost my brother to cancer 2 years ago. He was a teacher up in the Bronx for 25 years. I took care of him for 2 years. but life is short. And just the thing about whatever you want, what that little thing that is niggling at you and right before you fall asleep, just start doing it. And don't worry about being good or bad, but do it as often as you can. All right, that's my sort of thing about that. So anyway, eventually in 2014, I started with natural light and then a reflector. I added a speed light and eventually studio lights. I have a home studio now. I do corporate headshots. I bring a studio to that. They pay me a lot of money. It's like a dream come true for me. In 4 weeks, I'm going to Tanzania with an organization that trains rangers in Africa in wildlife crime scene investigation because I've made myself useful and I have a skill and they know me and it's a relationship that develops over time. And I pinch myself. When I hear myself say this stuff, because of my background, which was great, but I never dreamed I would be doing stuff like this. And I am in a state of inspiration. And I'm proud of doing it because there are really no rules, right? Except you just got to do it. So anyway, that's a little bit of the background. I'm going to hop out of this and I'm going to show a little bit of other work that I do before we get into the project because I realized people don't know that about me. So I'm going to go very quickly through this stuff. This first batch of stuff is studio work. These happen to be what I did at home. I work with actors, all kinds of people, dramatic stuff, rim lighting. My buddy Jack, who's a working actor, like this. And then I do outdoor work. And this is Michael Bacon. I got this gig because of relationships with people who like my work. And here's the one famous person I've ever photographed, and that's a portrait that I will remember forever of Kevin Bacon. He was delightful to work with, but I was nervous because I never photographed a real star, like a true star and famous person, but he was really, really down to earth. And the shoot went well because I prepped. I went a week before at the exact same time. I brought 2 assistants. I got my lighting nailed down. Even though I started shooting in Cortlandt Alley during the pandemic because I wanted to work outside, and that's where this is, and it's a place that I love shooting. And the day before, I was nervous, and so I just went to the alley to be in the space. It's like rehearsal for acting. You go and you do your thing, and doing everything I could. He came early. We did one test shot, and I nailed it. And I showed it to him, and I got his respect. And it was great from there on in. And I did 4 setups, got them in and out in 45 minutes. So preparation, preparation, preparation. This is a guy who's a stage manager. So we shot in Times Square. Really, really great guy. Works with big, big names and stuff. A couple of my friends who are here will recognize Nora. This is outdoor stuff. I'm not a fashion photographer now, but I'm doing a little bit more editorial work just for me. And I'll start charging when I feel like I'm really, really great at it. That's the thing I love. This is down in Tribeca, stuff like this. And she's an amazing gal and model. Friend who's an actress. This is a slam poet who I recently met who is unbelievable. So this is all outside. You know, yeah, she's Italy, right? She's fabulous, right? So yeah, and this is the 2 of them. We had a great time because it was this energy that is circular because everybody's there for a good reason. I also have the great joy of photographing musicians, not just the Bacon brothers. So this is Fame Recording Studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So relationships with people. I work with a gal named Emily Duff, who is the best singer-songwriter you have never heard of, and she's fabulous. So I went down with her about 6 years ago to document recording. This is a guy who's become a great friend, Will McFarlane. He's one of the greatest living studio musicians. He toured with Bonnie Raitt for 7 years, but wanted to have a home life. And so he got off the road and he became a studio musician. That's Emily. We were out for breakfast and the light was great. These are the Tall Pines, great friends, fabulous musicians. This was a little single or an album cover we did, and this like that. And then wildlife conservation. I work with this nonprofit called Wild Tomorrow, and then getting ready to work with this organization in Tanzania called Wildlife Defense. But this is from trips. These are caregivers. And these women, the backbones of these communities who look after the kids, they do all the work. And these kids who will just steal your heart, right? This is an all-time favorite photo. This is all natural light, right? Natural light and a reflector. And they love having us there. because we help support their life. Rhino dehornings, unfortunately necessary. But these people, this is a guy, Dr. Mike Toth, and he's devoted his life to helping save rhinos and other animals. We get to go on these, they call them trimmings actually now, on these dehornings because we pay for them. Raise money to help that happen. And a single dehorning costs about $1,500. You have a helicopter, you've got a vet with a lot of experience. He has to know how to dart the animal in the right place. You have a biologist, a helicopter pilot, the whole thing. When the animal comes down, hopefully in a good spot, everybody goes down. There's a team on the ground, there's government people. And I was sobbing inside as I was trying to document because it is profound and so sad that we need to do this. This is after the dehorning, and then there's an injection, and they bring them up. Anyway, and this is bird ringing, and they send information so they can track science stuff. And then the other thing is I do set stills and production stuff I love doing, and I love stealing light from the DP, and you have to know how to stay out of the way and look for light and pop in and go, hey, would you, and you earn trust. And hey, would you just stop for a second and not be in the way of the process of everything happening? This is great. This is like a month or so ago. This is a great guy, great actor. And then more personal projects. I'm liking to use gear. So there's a nostalgia train every December that happens in the city. So I work, and this ties in with Agreeable Strangers. I'm usually using a 50mm lens and not a big heavy one, not an f1.2. So I can one-hand it. I can back button autofocus, grab focus on the eye, and I can move wherever I need to do. And then I can hold my reflector to bounce light in right there. For this, which is very, very crowded, so trying to isolate people is very, very difficult. I've got this, and I have these Godox and Flashpoint here, have these little lenses called IT32s. I love them, they're amazing. And I put two on a little bracket, and I can hold them like this. That's lit with these tiny, tiny, tiny strobes, tiny flashes. Anyway, it's great to be able to get in and out and not be in the way of people. Everybody knows Louis Mendez. He's the bomb diggity. Event work, I do selected event work. I actually 2 years ago started being on the team for Macy's at the Thanksgiving Day Parade. I got referred. They had me back last year. This was 2 years ago when it was raining and soaked through, and it was fabulous. And this is the last amount of stuff I'll show. So on Sunday, it was the Pride March, and I go as an official volunteer photographer. This is a gal, Niecy Nash. She's very, very famous a year or so ago. But this is having a little strobe and putting people where you want and getting both the ambient exposure and then lighting them for pop. My friend Carol is 80 and works, and she's fantastic. You'll recognize him. And this is all, and this is from this last week. Yes, a question.
Referring to some photos earlier on in the presentation, but I noticed that the lighting was very even.
Yep.
And almost soft.
Yep.
And it did look like it was ambient light, and I was wondering what kind of setup you use.
So the question, yeah. So the question is about the quality and the nature of the light, and some of it looks soft, it was flat, it was even. So I do both. I'll do work shadows and stuff. There's a couple of things in there early on. I happen to be somebody when I'm taking headshots and things like that, who likes flat. Flat for me is flattering, and I'll basically light somebody. I'll have a 53-inch or 7-foot umbrella right behind me with an FJ400 shooting into it, and then a big reflector underneath, so it's nice and even, so those eyes pop. I love the look. Also, what's the point of that? Casting directors and agents, they're looking at a monitor with 20 faces on them. You can have the most artistic, creative, interesting photo, but it will not pop compared to something that is brightly lit, like I showed early on. There's a gal, there were 4 photos of her, and I've had this feedback from agents and from people go, oh my God, you got me in the door with these photos. The more dramatic stuff, which I love to do as well, Rembrandt lighting, all that stuff is great. If you're working with an actor, that goes on their website once somebody's interested in them, so you can help them imagine. Or there's a cinematic is the look, that's the word that's thrown around, and doing stuff like that, which I love as well. So I will both do flat lighting, which is even. I wouldn't call it soft, but it's even and then more dramatic with embracing shadows. This is Bernie, the voice of the MTA, and this is from Sunday. So I had an amazing time actually, and because I was an official with them, photographed some of the marshals, and everybody knows this guy from SNL, and they were really, really delightful. But you have to fight to get in and also be kind and not be a jerk, and that's also, if you want to work, you want to do that. This gal has a huge following. I'm not, by the way, if you want to follow me along on Instagram, stuff from Tanzania and everything, it's Charles Chessler, my name, NYC. It's on the screen, great. And I'm rebuilding because I lost all my socials a year ago. Don't feel obligated, but if you dig this, but she accepted this gal accepted a collaboration, and for the first time ever, I have like 34,000 likes on an image. Doesn't mean anything, but I got followers and stuff, and they were all fabulous. This fellow was there, Andrew, and I did some set stills on a gig about 6 weeks ago, and he's delightful, and the joy and the love was what that's all about. And this is the last thing that I'm going to show about this. This is the last thing I was going to show about that. So fabulous people. And the point of all of that, the thread that runs through it, is about connection and communicating. And I think sharing as much as possible how much we're more alike than not, most of us. There's a lot of noise everywhere in the media, but when I walk on the street, I get to go to Italy, when I go there, when I'm here with people, this is very simplistic, I know, but I think most people everywhere want three things. One, they want to be able to work and have a decent life, whether they're a first-generation immigrant, whether they've been here for generations and generations. Number two, if they have children, they want to be able to educate those children so they can have a better life. And then number three is, I think most people just want to be treated with a little bit of respect and a little bit of kindness. And I think that's more people than not. So my project, Agreeable Strangers, let me get this going up here. I started back in 2011. What is that? Let's go big now. Come on. And let's go big. There we go. I started in 2011. I was on a photo walk with that other store. And indeed, I fell in love with, and I realized people want to be witnessed if you talk to them the right way. So street photography and people who do it really well, for me, it's the hardest thing in the world because you're trying to organize space in something fluid and say something, right? A lot of people call themselves street photographers and they're grabbing shots and stuff, but the stuff that really moves us, it's not few and far between, but it's really, really difficult. What I do is much easier. And why is it easier? Because I'm talking directly to somebody. And for those of you who may be a little nervous about approaching people, here's the whole thing. You got to know your why. If you have a reason why, and you are willing to hear no, and you have your elevator pitch, and you do it just casually, and you're not pushy, and if you got to feel people, and nobody wants a camera just shoved in their face. So I'll jump right into this. So I'm walking, I have a camera over my shoulder, and I don't have a reflector out yet usually. And if I'm loitering in good light, we'll go right into all the stuff with that. I loiter in good light, so you have the best chance of having a very quick 2-minute interaction. And some of the photos I do, I'm taking literally 3 clicks. So what I'll do, somebody will come, and my why will be related into what my ask is, which I will tell you now. I'll see somebody for whatever reason I feel moved to ask them. I'm in good light, and I go, hey, my name is Charles. I'm a photographer. For about 15 years, I've been doing this project called Agreeable Strangers, and it's about celebrating and showing the beautiful diversity I see everywhere I go. And I mean every word of it, right? And then I'll say, you have a very cool look. The light here is great. Could I take a 2-second portrait of you? And a lot of people will go, yeah, okay. And some people will go, well, where are you going to put, what are you going to do with an image? And then I'll show them my Instagram and I'll say, I'm doing this literally for the joy of connecting and having a random interaction with people because we're so divided. And this in-person stuff that we've been talking about, I love being out on the street with people and making a random connection. And I've made great lifelong friends and I've had people feel witnessed emotionally. I go, nobody's ever asked me to, thank you. And it helps so boost their ego a little bit and their self-confidence like that. So I'll do that. And then if somebody's a hard no, and you can see if people are going through stuff, let them go. You don't need, and I think in any way with a career, you don't need to convince anybody of something. My mentees, I tell them, find your people, right? And you will know who your people are. And the older we get, maybe we recognize that more quickly. And those who are not, you don't have to convince them, just let them go. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to waste precious energy. Again, life is short, right? You let them go. I have this little thing I tell my kids, and it was like, I'm driving this bus, and it's a nice bus. It's a nice bus. It's a nice bus. And there are great people on my bus. They're my people, right? And if I open the door and somebody looks in, I'm like, take a look. If you like my bus and you like the people, come on, we'll have a great time. But if my bus is not for you, there's another bus right behind me. Go ahead and get on that and we'll all be happier, my bus and that bus and you. It's so much easier than confrontation for absolutely no reason. So anyway, person will say yes. We get to the yes. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to ask you to do one thing that I ask everybody to do. And they're, oh, what? No, I know, don't worry, it's okay. And I realized early on, I needed to find a way in and developing trust without being intrusive. I'm a guy, a middle-aged, a little over middle-aged, white dude on the street, and that plays in different scenarios, right? Gaining people's trust in their, so I say, I don't want to know your personal business. If somebody wants to tell me that, that's fine. But that is the key to giving them respect. And I go, but, and I'm slow way down because I want the curtain to drop. I want somebody to drop in. I go, but I'd like you to think, maybe close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and think about how you are really, really, really feeling right now. And people will take a breath and I'll say, you don't have to show me. I believe we all have it in us, our life experience. So I'm grateful that you're stopping and you can just be and just look in my lens. And they open their eyes and I go click, 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 and we're done. And that's how the whole thing works. So any questions around that process and the interaction and knowing your why?
Question online. So someone's basically asking, is there a reason that you didn't want to have the reflector out right away? Would that impact
the
interaction?
I think like you're maybe on the prowl. It's a little more casual at first, and I'll take the reflector out, and sometimes you're, oh my God, it's a whole photo shoot and stuff like that. So having the reflector not out, yeah, I think it makes it a little easier for the ask. I hope that answers the question. Any questions out here? No questions. So I'll keep going. Yes, sir.
So when you're like deciding of, waiting and stalking, waiting.
Loitering.
Loitering. I'm trying to find the right word.
Yeah.
Loitering. Have you thought about like background? Have you thought about, like situations? Are you trying to make all the pictures a little different? I mean, what's your thinking while you're there?
You're assuming I'm thinking. So the question is,
you're loitering on the corner. So.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you don't need to think to loiter. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I have friends in the audience. So the question is, so I will wait in good light. And the question is, while I'm waiting / loitering, am I thinking about the background? Am I planning different looks, different light? I basically go around, if I feel motivated and moved wherever I am and there's decent light, I do try to make sure I have a relatively neutral background. I'm someone who will not shoot against a wall. I don't want it to be about the wall. And I don't want it to be about the buildings and stuff like that. I will look for the light where I can shoot down a street. So there's plenty of distance behind my subject. So they are lit, and then You know, the farther the background is behind your subject, the more defocused it will be, whatever camera you have, even if you have a kit lens. You can put it, if it's 4.5 is your maximum widest open aperture. If you have a lot of space behind that person, you get focus on the eye, that background is going to go out of focus. So yes, I do think about that, absolutely.
Follow-up.
Yes, follow up.
More important, the background or the light?
The light. The light. I have a photo that I'll get to of a beautiful kid. I was in a Starbucks. I'm kind of proud of what I did. And he was a photographer, and he had a great look, and there was some window light coming from the side. But all of the products for Starbucks were right behind him. He was with a friend who had a black jacket. I said, would you just hold the black jacket? So I was able to control the background. And the light was absolutely stunning. But questions? No.
You got a question online.
Okay.
Someone just wants to know, do you ever send them their photos?
Do I ever what?
Send them their photos.
Oh, yeah, I was going to get to that at the end. So the question is, do I ever send them the photos? At the end, I wrap it up. I carry a business card, and I say, please email me. I will send you an excellent file if you want to make some prints of it. I don't want to take. It's a circular thing with the energy. And it's about having a real, even if it's 2 minutes, random connection. I'll answer something else about that. So as a middle-aged, a little over white dude, I'm very aware of a couple of scenarios. Like in general, always being respectful, like, right? Don't be sleazy guy, right, guys, right? We really have to make sure not to do that. So if I'm approaching somebody who, whether it's a man or a woman who looks as model, good looks and stuff like that, you know, you got to be they're used to being hassled, whatever, very professional. But the other most heartfelt one for me is I love if I see one parent, whether it's a man or a woman, with a very young child or a baby. And obviously you have to be incredibly mindful with children, right? And I don't ever push myself on stuff. But what I do is I talk to them and I go, my spiel, I'm doing this project, you guys look amazing. And if they're a little hesitant, and some people say yes right away, and I believe this with all my heart, and I moved back into my childhood apartment, back in 2017. The most prized possession I had that I found there was my parents' wedding album from 1952, physical print, right? And I do some stuff. Printique, by the way, is amazing. And if you're not printing with them, I highly recommend them. So I will say, listen, I totally get it, and I'm not going to force anything. But this is my thinking, and this is one of the reasons why I asked you. Your child, 3, 4, 1-year-old, my idea is that we will document this random moment, and your child's grandchildren, you'll make a print, will know you in this moment. Nobody has ever said no after I said that. And I'm emotional just saying it now, because again, this whole thing, following your passion, life is short. If you want to do something, work at it and figure out, and you can align yourself if there are organizations, not-for-profits that you like, you donate your time, stuff like that. But do it now. Don't wait if you can. Cool. That was a long answer, right? So I'm just going to fly through some images. This was from that very first time we were tasked with photographing strangers down on St. Mark's Place. Don't want to belabor stuff. This is a good little story, though. This gal was at ice cream truck, and she was delightful, and St. Mark's Place. And it was the first time, literally the first, and I said, I need to make a print and find this gal. So I made a print. I came to pick it up here, because that was when, at the time, it was Adorama pics and that. And I pick up prints, and I walk to Fifth Avenue. I walk up 2 blocks. She's there with the truck. I said, you're not going to believe this. I have a print for you. We both started crying. These are real interactions. And I don't know her family, what the situation is. This is a long time ago now, but that print exists, and somebody will look at it and think of her and remember her. Okay, anyway, this is these adorable kids under the FDR Drive. So here's hanging out. The light was gorgeous, right? The light trumped the background there, right? I couldn't control that entire background. So thank you for that question, because, you know, and these kids were adorable, and their parents, they were with their mothers that were at first a little hesitant. I said, no, it's okay, it's okay. I said, but they were a little curious. And I said, what if I take one photo and I'll show it to you? and also being respectful because they're kids. I said, I'll delete it in front of you if you don't like it. So I took a photo, I showed it to them, and they were like, kids, come on. And it was beautiful, right? It was a beautiful thing. So this would be a little bit more, shooting, not approaching, but I took this photo because the beard, I mean, come on. And then I approached him and we did this. I think his name was Ian, and I sent him the photo and he loved having that. This is almost made the cover of the book. And these take me right back to a moment in time. This beautiful family, I was in Washington Square Park, and it was May 26th, because it was my buddy's birthday, 2016, 10 years ago. And they just lit up. And I think whatever the relationship is, how the sisters, whatever like that, aunts, it was fantastic. But could we have a little more joy like this all the time in the world, everywhere we go? So you all are photographers. You have a skill where you can create that joy. You have to figure out your why. That's the key. And you have that elevator, and it's an easy ask, and it's like, okay, no is no. There's a guy named Trey Ratcliffe, and he was all over the internet years and years ago, and he did a photo walk. And so it was Brooklyn Bridge Park, and I get places early, because then you meet people. And these guys were amazing musicians. And this kid was with her mom, and her mom was a little freaked out. She ran right over and did this, and these guys were fabulous. And I love this, right? It says what it says, I think. So beautiful. These kids, and I'm not going to go through every one with a story, because I want to leave open for discussion more later. So my mother spent the last 3 years and I share a lot. I don't share everything, but I do overshare because it's our humanity, shared humanity. It's the third thing on my passion, purpose, and shared humanity. Why else would we do this, right? There are photographers who are technically amazing and the photo is beautiful. And you look at it and you go, okay, I'll take an imperfect photo with heart and soul over a perfectly executed photo any day of the week. So my mother spent the last 3 years of her life. Question?
Yeah.
Yes.
When you said sharing, do you share yourself with them?
I do if it comes up. You have to have human skills, right? So if somebody's in a rush, you just want to get it done. But if there's a conversation that starts, and I will tell, and we didn't get into a conversation, but I always said, yeah, my mom's down the block at the New Jewish Home. That's where she's been living. That's where she's going to spend the rest of her living days and stuff like that. I would absolutely do that. But you'll see there's a camera and there's a little monopod thing or whatever stick. So we had a little conversation about photography and filmmaking, and I hope they're making big projects. This is like 10 years ago. But we had this moment, and it was a beautiful thing. And what's beautiful about some of this stuff is it's breaking barriers a little bit, right? And it's through the mutual creativity and good intentions, and you cannot fake those. And then again, that goes back to knowing your why. This is fun down at the courts at 6th Avenue and 4th Street. This guy, I think he was Italian. I said, can you just girati un po'? Could you turn a little bit? And I had my back button focus, and I got right on his eye and was able just to move to center his eye. I took like 2 clicks and got it. And I love all of this stuff. I'm like, when I do this, I'm chuffed. I can't believe I did this. It's like I'm still in that place, and I hope to remain there forever because this came late for me. I started making my full-time living as a photographer in 2018 when I was 57 years old. I am buzzing up here with gratitude and inspiration. I feel like I'm just getting started. So this was a Starbucks on 103rd Street and Broadway, and I used to stop in. I was a personal trainer, believe it or not, for older adults, and I would stop in before going to spend the afternoon with my mother. She was at the New Jewish Home for 3 years, and my brother and I, one of us was with her every afternoon, so she didn't eat alone. And it was one of the best things I've ever done. So I go, and there's this gal, unbelievable, in the window light, and I say, the project, she said, okay, just give me a minute. She goes to the bathroom, puts on a full face of makeup and lipstick, and it turns out that she had been a hat model back in the day. And we made one another's day, and she was visible, right? They're invisible populations, right? And she's gorgeous, right? Beautiful. So anyway, there's that kind of joy with that. This is on another photo walk. I don't mind. So if I have light with me, I can I can underexpose the background a little bit, but I don't mind. This is not blown out, but a bright, bright background. All I had was a reflector. I was on a photo walk. She was busy with her parents and everything after graduating. But the colors, the hat and the dress and her eyes pop in, and I just put the reflector right in there and exposed for her. And that's what we get. And I mean, the joy, and she was thrilled to be witnessed. This is a guy, Laurent, who couldn't make it. He lives in the city. He's a fashion designer. And I met him. This is at Bethesda Terrace. And the light, if you just go just inside, is really, really lovely. So that, and this guy was at a Starbucks. And I asked him to drop in. And there's a sadness that I see there. And he opened up to me. And I would like to think it helped him to feel witnessed. And I probably said something like, whatever you're going through, I hope it gets better. And we had a moment. So here's the cover photo. These guys just beautiful. I hope they're still together. Who knows? Years ago on 6th Avenue. And I asked them, and they started to arrange themselves. I said, don't move, please. Just breathe and mesh. And I think I might have asked them to listen to their heartbeats, right? Beautiful, youthful love, right? So this guy, and then I'll move through some more stuff more quickly. We've got plenty of time-ish. So it's been a while, I did some work in the Bronx for a community center. And I needed to get a drink. And there was it's a Kennedy Fried Chicken. And I went and I got a soda. And it's in quite a bit of disrepair. And there's one booth there. So I'm sitting in the booth. This guy comes in, he's getting something to eat and or to drink and stuff like that. And he looks over and he's like, oh, that guy's not. And I said, why don't you come sit down? There's room. He was like a little taken aback and shocked and stuff like that. I sat for a minute and I said, can I ask you a question? He's like, what? And I told him the thing. And I said, which is the truth? There's this so this is side lighting, right, guys? It's a little bit more shadows and stuff, a little more layered, textured. And I told him, and I don't care if a person is gay or straight, but I like to make sure people are comfortable. And I said this and I meant it. I said, I like girls, but man, you're beautiful. Last thing this guy would expect me to be saying to him, totally disarmed him. He trusted me. And I said, listen, I would love for you, think about how you're feeling, take 3 deep breaths. And this is one of my favorite photos I've ever taken. He gave me his trust. And I said to him also, I said, if there's something going on in your life, I hope it all works out. It gets better like that. And he was like, thanks, man. And that was it. That's the end of that. And I gave him a card. He never got in touch with me. Everybody, you got to leave people to do what they're comfortable with. So this is a gal under Bethesda Terrace. So this is Jan and Joshua. And this was also to Starbucks on the way to see my mom. And they're just so adorable, right? So we became friends. And for the last 10 years, every 2 years, Joshua is a print model and an actor, and I do headshots for him. And so it's great. And they're in the book, and she bought the book, and it was really, really lovely. This is a guy who's a photographer. So I do some processing, right, for effect, and it's whimsical for me, right, what I do. But I was experimenting. I was on the High Line and underexposing the backdrop. I had one on-camera flash for you technical people, and I had 2 friends with me. Dan, you were there, right? You and Brian, right? And I was trying to use one flash, shoot it up into a reflector, and have another reflector and have it bounce it in. So he's lit with one on-camera flash angled just right, and 2 of my buddies holding reflectors in just the right position. So I love stuff like that. Anyway, and this is a guy up at the Conservatory Garden. This is funny because I'm photographing this gal. It's on 5th Avenue. And I'm like, dude in the red shirt, what's your problem, man? And I'm like, this guy's like staring, and she's like, it's my dad. And I said, Dad, it's cool, don't worry. I ended up photographing the whole family, but it's communication and breaking the ice, talking to people. And that the song, if I were good at doing reels and stuff like that, and I do on some of it, it's a Sly and the Family Stone. It's everyday people, right? Most of it's just trying to get by and figure it out, whether it's paying our bills or living a creative life, making your living full time, or making sure it's part of your life while you're being the responsible person that you know, like that. So, and this was on another photo walk, very boom, right, dropped right in for me. These kids beautiful on the pier on 72nd Street. These two were getting married, and I don't think there was a photographer around, and I just love them. They're just beautiful, and they would loved having the photo. So here's the guy who was in the Starbucks, right? What a cool looking dude. He had a camera, entry-level camera. We were talking, and it was all the Starbucks garbage right behind him, and his friend had the black jacket. And I said, would you just hold the jacket there? And it's that side lighting, kind of Rembrandt-y like that. This is right. This is good, right? So we did another one. The first one's, but he just looked right in at me, and so that was great. Oh, and it's all, sorry, I have so many stories, right? So I was in Denver. I was in a long distance relationship for a while. She's since moved in with me. Sorry for her, but it's okay. And we have a home studio. She's become a photographer as well. So I'm in Denver, Foo Fighters, sorry. And I have a problem with the, thank you, whoever got that. And there's a problem with the bathroom. It was early evening. So I called down and they send somebody up. And this guy walks, I opened the door and I didn't even say hello. And I said the same thing. I was like, sir, I like women. I don't know if you like women or men, I don't care. You're beautiful. I need to photograph you. So he came in, we ended up having a talk for a while. This guy was a career military guy. His family for 3 generations served this country. And he's like nonchalant and casual, tours in Iraq. Like, can't imagine what he's seen. And now he's back, and I think he probably just wants to stay busy, and he's working. So I had nothing. It was kind of dark. There was no window light to be had. I didn't have a strobe or a light, I don't know, light stand set up. So I'm like, what's here? This harsh table lamp, and I have a reflector. So he allowed me to do a pullback, and we got this photo. And I mean, you know, you use what you've got, right? There's no excuse not to. The worst that can happen is that it's a bad photo and nobody has to see it. Don't post it, right? Only post your best stuff. This is in Denver, the Starbucks window light. This is in Times Square. The scale was radiant. This is also almost a cover photo for a book. This guy was just finished working at a bike shop. He's a skateboard dude. This is natural light also, and a little bit, it's like that nice, that Rembrandt. The other side, it's broad lighting, blah, blah, blah. 2-second guys. I was scouting to lead a photo walk, and this is on 42nd Street. And these guys were out front, and it's oversaturated, and it's a choice. You might not like it. I like it. You gotta find your own way with the processing and stuff. This guy, this is very high ISO. I don't care about shooting high ISO. I'd rather have a sharp image of something and not miss the moment. And sometimes I'll leave the noise, and sometimes I happen to like now Lightroom's noise reduction. Their default stuff does a great job. And I do some event work where it's dark, and I'm shooting at ISOs 25,000 ISO. The event people don't care. I run it through my whole process, do everything I do, and if I have like 150 or 200 images, I do the noise reduction, let it run overnight, and then I deliver the images, and it's great. I love this guy because he was exhausted. He's a maintenance guy at a school, private school on the Upper West Side, and he was so delighted to be asked. I said, I can tell you're and he's beautiful, and the colors, the blue, all of that, and that smile. But there's kindness, that kindness in that face. And this guy, he's an actor and a filmmaker. So here's an example of, I had an on-camera flash with me. It was, I had a ProPhoto A1 before I switched to I was gonna go in with ProPhoto, which is amazing, but Westcott was more in my wheelhouse and aligned more with me. But I had an on-camera ProPhoto A1. I underexposed the background. This is in the Central Park, and lit him, and it looks like flash, but it's a choice, right? You can balance more, or you can have it a little bit brighter, and you can have them more even, but you can control the contrast you want in the relationship with your ambient exposure and your flash. Just a general thing, when you have a flash or a strobe, you have 2 exposures, so theoretically you can really expand your dynamic range. I'm not going to get into middle gray and all that, but afterwards if we want. This gal on camera flash, just beautiful, so happy to be asked that. This gal was natural light. She's from Sierra Leone, my favorite. This is a gal who was delivery, and this is in Denver. Had an amazing look. You can see the dot. I had a little on-camera flash that she's lit with. It's a flash look, but I love it. And this guy was some famous singer I didn't know. He was down in Tribeca, and he was lovely. He was with two young gals. They were like, "Don't do it, don't do it." And he was like, "Why not?" And so he was a mensch. They were like more impressed with being around somebody famous. It's like, okay. This was before Photoville one year. This says Grumpy. And that's Coney Island, New Year's Day, and I did flash stuff, underexposing the background like that, these guys. This is right across from the Pantheon in Italy. Chad, I very much align with him. He had been there for 16 years. He said he visited, met a gal, and never came home. I lived in Italy for 2 years back in the 80s, almost never came home. And now I go as often as I can for 2 to 4 weeks. I have a friend who became a very well-known filmmaker, so I do headshots there. So I can buy my gelato and my espresso and pay for my Airbnb just to be in Italy because life is short. This is quick, natural light under some scaffolding. This is on another photo walk. This gal's a model, and she was absolutely delightful. She had been walking through. This is natural light with a reflector. And so you know when it's cloudy out, it's overcast, that's our friend. For those of us who like even flat/flattering light, right? You pick and choose what works for you. This was in Rome, obviously cosplay or whatever with an amazing look. And this is the last story I think I'll tell, which is 5:45. So relationships and talking to people. I went back to Rome because I for the first time in years and years and years and years, it was like I'm getting a little older. It was either the first 2 weeks or the last 2 weeks of February in 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. Didn't know what was happening yet. The previous December, I had went to Katz's Deli with some old acting friends. A couple were visiting from LA and stuff, and we're eating, having a great Katz's sandwich, blah, blah, blah. And my buddy, Jose Santana, who's a great teacher, and he worked back in the day, but also stopped working because he was tired of being stereotyped as a pimp or a drug dealer. And he's a philosopher and an amazing actor, an amazing guy. So he and his now wife, he said, "Oh, and we stayed at this little Airbnb. It's kind of quirky. It's not fancy at all and stuff like that. But the gal who runs it is great." So, oh, great. So just blindly, I went and I booked. And I stayed with them right in the heart of Rome in the classic, and it was 60 euros a night. Now it's 80 euros a night, and it's not fancy, but it's amazing. So the gal who runs it, her husband happens to be an artist, and he happens to collaborate with some fashion designers who have a little boutique. They've had the lease on the place for 40 years, right in the heart of Rome. So it was the second trip back. It wasn't on that trip. They go, "Would you like to take some photos? We've got some gals together." And they had these beautiful dresses and beautiful artwork that was painted onto them. So we're doing that. And I have a small kit with me. I have a very light, it's a Matthews reverse stand. Great for travel. By the way, I'm waiting for my Magma, just came out because you can break them down. I can't wait to get them for travel, light stand. But so I had that, and I had an FJ200. It's about the size of a 70 to 200 F4. And I had an Octa S 26-inch, right? I had it off to the side, I'm photographing the gals, blah, blah, blah. These two adorable sisters are just looking and wrapped, and their parents are like, "Leave them out, we got to go," stuff like that. So we had a little break. They were changing outfits and stuff like that. And I was like, "Would you guys like a photograph?" And it was such a beautiful, organic moment. The two of them ran right to where the models had been, the people who were modeling were. I ran and I lowered the light stand, and I got back. I wish I'd gotten back. So for those of you who really analyze stuff, I wish I'd gotten back another 2 steps so I had more negative space under their feet. But this is fine considering. Get the light lowered, I get back. My settings are dialed in, right? Know your settings for stuff like this. And just as I do that, this little sister jumps on her sister's body. I go click, 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 and get it. And I sent them this photo. Their parents were thrilled. And it was just this beautiful moment, right? Kids anywhere. So yeah, any questions on the chat? I'll take 2 live questions. What's your name?
Umar.
Umar, nice to meet you.
How do you underexpose your background on set? Do you do it post-production or you do it?
So I try to get as much as possible right in camera. I'm not always successful, right? So you're doing two things. So with something like this, the light was constant. So I dial in a manual exposure on my camera to get the ambient light that I like. I always try to do it so I'm under what's called maximum sync speed so that the flash or strobe will recycle more quickly. If it's not too bright out and I can increase my ISO to like 400, I will do that because the flash or the strobe will work less hard and that recycle time will be quicker with that. So for something like this, which although I was running with them, which was fairly controlled environment, and certainly if you're indoors doing studio work, I had the manual exposure for the background locked in, and I had the settings good for the flash exposure on them. I'll tweak a little bit if I need to, but does that answer the question? Yeah, and the question was, how do I deal with the background exposure versus the strobe or the flash exposure? Cool. And what's your name again?
Dan,
Dan.
you're doing a book and you have a lot of people. How do you deal with legal?
Oh, okay. So, okay.
And how does that come into?
So the question, and indeed Seth mentioned earlier on the channel, they actually had a lawyer in who addressed this from sort of a layperson and how I understand it, and which I think is also correct. If you're selling Coca-Cola, Levi's jeans, or something like that, and those images are gonna be used to promote a project commercially, you need to have a deal. Either the person's getting paid or they sign a release. If you're doing something that's artistic or creative, whether or not I'm making money on the book or not, you don't need a release. I get a verbal, yeah. If I were trying to sell a product, if I invented a modifier and I'm going to use the images to sell that modifier, yeah, I need a release or I need to pay the people as you should.
So actually, everything you said is what I understood, except I would think that a book would fit into making money.
Yeah, well, no, a book, because it's art. There's an old law, and I think it was about newspapers back to late 18. I'm not sure. I would Google it, but that covers. It's an art, something in terms of an art. Yes. Do you?
Earlier you mentioned stealing light from a DP. Could you explain that?
Sure. So the question is, earlier I mentioned stealing light from like a director of photography while I'm doing set stills. So when you're on a set, you're the photographer, you got to do the job and you got to stay the heck out of the way. I end up working with a lot of people that I know because I started doing it, the word got out. Hopefully the work is decent, right? So you watch, and I know where the camera is, and I watch when they're creating light, and they will rehearse, and I'll shoot during rehearsals. And then they'll do takes. I don't shoot. I don't want to have a big thing that I don't want to use silent mode on the camera or anything like that. If they're wrap cut and they're like going to the next setup, I'll go, can I have 30 seconds to grab this light right here before you break down? And people love what I do. And so they get right in there and click, click, click. And it's 3 or 4 clicks, right? It's boom. And with that, the light is existing. Right? So I'm not adding light. So I'm in aperture. When I shoot like that, I'm in aperture priority mode because I want to lock my aperture in, whether I want it wide open at whatever, f1, 2.5, 1.4. And then I couple that with an auto ISO, which is coupled with a minimum shutter speed. And the reason I do that is because I don't have to think so much, right? All I have to do is lock focus with back button focus. And I use the wheel to exposure compensation, basically up or down if I need to do that. And there was a good point I was going to make, and it just went 64, right? Let me just, yeah. And the rest of the point was going to be if I'm shooting with a 50 millimeter, I set my minimum shutter speed. It can be set to 100, right? The reciprocal twice amount. If I'm in South Africa and I have a 150 to 600, and I'm going to be racked out at 600 millimeters, theoretically, I want 1/1200th of a second as a minimum shutter speed. I will set it for 1/2000th as I'm getting a little older because I have a once in a lifetime. I don't have it here. I have shots of African bee eaters catching a bug. It's the best bird photo I've ever taken. I was hanging off the side of a vehicle in South Africa, and I'm using burst mode. And because I had 1/2000th of a second, they're tack sharp, even cropped all the way in like that. So that's the reason for that. Another question here.
Quick follow-up.
Yes.
To the legality issue of
Yeah.
doing a book and its artwork. Would a gallery of photos of people without a consent also fall into that?
I think it would be fine because it's art, right? Yeah, you're not selling jeans or a beverage or anything like that.
Could you sell those photos in the same project?
Yeah, I could. Yeah. I think my understanding is that I could, but yeah, it's art. It's art. So, there was an online question. Yeah.
They're basically asking, do you feel it makes sense to prioritize approaching people who seem like they may not be used to being seen?
I think that's a really great question, whoever asked that. So my business card says passion, purpose, and shared humanity. I think you need to, I feel out the situations. And if I feel compelled for whatever reason, whether it's somebody who would love to be photographed, but if I feel like it's somebody and maybe I'm feeling a sadness and maybe they're not sure, stuff like that, I don't go out with a plan to prioritize somebody who's looking sad or somebody who looks amazing. I go out, I very much am at a point in my life where I live completely in the moment. I have a nice day-to-day flow. Again, I'm up here inspired and pinch myself. I have a career. I make my living doing this. I get a little verklempt. I never in my life thought that I would have a career doing what I loved. Until I was 57 years old, I did every job ever. I managed a bike shop, was a personal trainer, cater waiter, working out of debt and stuff like that. But let me tell you, it makes this moment that much sweeter. And I'm like, yeah, I'm repeating myself. I'm going to Tanzania in 4 weeks. What? And I'm being of service as well. And that's important to me, right? Knowing your why. Thank you. I'm going to fly through. This guy was in Central Park. I gotta say, he's a famous Italian director. I didn't know. And he was very chill with me. And his wife is a well-known Italian actress. I didn't know them, and she was lovely. This was in Cortlandt Alley, and somebody told me this guy was a little bit, got like a background. They recognize him. I don't know who he is. But I was doing a shoot, and then we got out of the way because cars were coming down, and the light it was diffused, but he was right at the window of the car, was just stunning. And people ask me, do you know ahead, do you decide black and white versus color? I decide when I'm on the computer, and it's a whim with me, or it's just what I want to do, right? And I'm old enough, I should be able to do what I want to do, right? So, and this beautiful mother and child. So this is where I ended. And this is a photo walk, Times Square, for it says Scott Kelby photo day, stuff like that. And these guys almost made the cover as well. Skateboarders down in Cortlandt Alley. Okay. And then I'll end with this gal's fabulous. I was doing a photo shoot on the Upper West Side with an actress who's kind of established and stuff. This gal was, she's watching and looking and stuff like that. And we had a little bit of a chat on a break. And I said, can I take a photo of you? I do this project. She was so thrilled. And it turned out she too, way back when, had modeled. And she was so delighted to be asked. Beautiful thing. Okay. Yeah, I think that's plenty. I don't want to belabor where it's sick. Any questions? I'll come up and take a look at this, if you will, just to do the little bit about the book. Basically, Snap Collective is a great publisher from Europe. And what they do, they were an academic publishing house forever, and they waited for digital printing to get, and there's Melissa from Snap. Do you mind if people talk to you afterwards? Yeah. So they waited for digital printing to be good enough to do things like photo books like this. And if they decide to work with you, the way it works is, I'm going to preface it by saying, I know photographers who paid $20,000, $30,000 to self-publish a book, like a big book. So what Snap does is you basically decide to work together. You have a cover photo, and you give them 6 kind of representative photos of what the book's going to be about. And then you do what's called a pre-order. When you launch a pre-order, which lasts for 2 weeks, and you have to guarantee a certain number of books to have a certain price. There's a regular price, which is a price, and then there's a price if you sell 25 books, and you guarantee 35 books. So I guaranteed 35 books, and that was a price. And then you do a bulk order. So I would take the orders, and this way it's a bulk order, so it's no shipping internationally, which saves money. The books are not cheap, but they're beautiful and they're worth it. And for me, it's not about making money, but it's having something to leave to the world. Hopefully it doesn't end up in a $3 bin or something like that, or at the Strand like that. So afterwards, if anybody wants to come up, they gave me one more round. The first round was a year ago. I lost all my socials, unfortunately, and they're allowing me to do another pre-order thing, and then the book will not be available anymore. So if anybody's interested, it's not cheap. It's $125, but it's beautiful. I hope you'll come up and take a look at it. And then if you're interested, you want to talk to Melissa, my suggestion is if you feel good about a real body of work that you have, but also relationships, open a conversation. You can check them out. And if this kind of setup works for you, maybe it'll motivate you to do work and if for a year and have something to then approach them with. But it's a great business model if you want to have a big, beautiful book. So I think that was the end of that I wanted to. Any last questions online? No, we're good. Thank you all online for hanging with us. You're smart, it was air conditioned. Thank you, everybody. And the last